Good evening. Tonight, we'll be investigating a bitter row that's erupted over the redevelopment of a Welsh market town. Small shopkeepers are fighting a plan backed by the world's biggest supermarket chain. We've also got the extraordinary Wales This Week film that sharp-eyed viewers have asked us to pass on to the police. But first, the story of the Welsh accountant who was struck off, how one of his former customers says his actions contributed to the collapse of his travel agents, and how the accountant's regulatory body wants the law changed to stop people like him from practising as accountants. Kevin Kynaston runs an accountancy firm in Cardiff. He was in court last week. He sued a builder for non-payment of a bill, but the judge did not accept his case. The builder claimed that he hadn't dealt with his accounts correctly, and it's not the first time that Kevin Kynaston has been in court with a customer. David Miller had a similar problem.
He said, well, if you don't pay, he said, I'll just sue you for the difference. I said, well, you go ahead and sue me. As far as I'm concerned, I'll put in a counterclaim for all the problems I've had with you, and there were a lot of problems.
Bob Green's another unhappy customer of Kevin Kynaston. For 25 years, he ran a travel agency called Mossley Travel near Manchester. He had a silent partner, Kevin Kynaston's brother, Thomas. The collapse of the partnership ruined his life.
Our daughters were in the same ballet class, and that's how we got to know the Kynastons. And he approached me about 1977, 1978, and said he was interested. If I was interested in going into business on my own, then he'd quite happy to be my partner.
The silent partner, Thomas Kynaston, lives here in Stockport. His brother, Kevin Kynaston, looked after the accounts from these offices in Cardiff.
We were predominantly a cruise business. We dealt with cruises, so we're on a national base, and people dealt with us from all over the country. And obviously, lots of checks came in from everywhere, basically.
The partnership grew, with hundreds of clients and £1 million turnover. It had accreditation from the Association of British Travel Agents. That protected clients' money if the partnership failed. But after 20 years, Bob Green got divorced. He went through his finances and didn't like what he found.
I was reassured by the Kynastons that they'd done nothing untoward.
He wasn't convinced, so he asked the brothers to leave.
I couldn't fire Kevin Kynaston without Tom Kynaston's cooperation. And I couldn't just get rid of Thomas Kynaston and for the business to remain intact. We would immediately, unless it was agreed between the partners, Mossley Travel would then fail to be a member of ABTA and, to all intents and purposes, not be able to trade.
He hired a forensic accountant to investigate his own firm. He was unclear as to what had been going on because the business arrangements between the two partners had been so loose. Travel agents are traditionally cash-heavy businesses because they hold customers' deposits. But the accountant's investigation found that Mossley Travel was in overdraft for 19 years.
The accounts of Mossley Travel actually show that the company was in overdraft. And what was happening, the surplus cash was being taken out to Tom Kynaston's accounts, whether it was private accounts or Rexbray, I'm not entirely sure. But the interest on those funds was never accounted for in the partnership.
The accounts show the Mossley Travel premises was bought for £101,000 in 1984. It was co-owned by the travel agent and Thomas Kynaston's other business, Rexbray. In 1998, it disappeared from the Mossley Travel balance sheets.
It was removed from the Mossley Travel balance sheet in the 1998 accounts at cost, and subsequently reappeared after I'd asked some questions in the 2002 accounts, again at cost.
Bob Green also realised, although he co-owned the building, his name wasn't on the land registry deeds. It's worth millions, so he employed a solicitor. After arguing for 2.5 years, she got a restriction clause placed on the deeds.
If they wish to go ahead and sell the property, any third-party buyer would immediately be on alert once they realise that a restriction is registered, and they would ask for the Kynastons to comply with the condition.
Round the back of the shop were old outhouses. Thomas Kynaston got planning permission to convert them into offices, but he converted them into flats. They've been let out for years, but until the forensic accountant's investigation, no rent appeared on Mossley Travel books. Bob Green doesn't know why.
So I don't know what's happened to the substantial rent that must have been received in that period.
Things turned from bad to worse when in 2003 Thomas Kynaston withdrew money from the firm's accounts without a word to Bob Green.
£60,000 being removed from the client's account. I I telephoned the bank first of all, and they said yes, they had been removed by Thomas Kynaston.
It was the final straw for Bob Green. He wanted to end Mossley Travel, so he contacted ABTA to inform them that his company had failed.
He said, we're not going to treat Mossley Travel as a failure. And I said, how can that be?
ABTA had concerns in the past about mistakes made by Kevin Kynaston in the travel agent's books.
ABTA did have some concerns over the accounts for Mossley Travel, in which they sent the accounts back to Kevin Kynaston and asked him to resubmit them. Kevin resubmitted them with the changes and admitted there were some mistakes in them. ABTA took his word on the fact that it was an oversight.
In 2003, the silent partner Thomas Kynaston had been speaking to ABTA.
I received a letter from Kevin Kynaston assuring ABTA that all creditors, not just the ABTA covered companies and clients, but all creditors of the business will be paid in full by Thomas Kynaston in return for ABTA not regarding it as a failure. I couldn't understand why this should be. It still didn't make any sense to me.
ABTA argued in this case that they didn't get involved and they didn't pull the bond because it was obviously a dispute between the partners. Tom Kynaston said that the company could still trade, whereas Bob Green said that the company couldn't.
Bob Green was worried about his customers and their money.
Of course, there was the subject of how the existing bookings, which we had many, would be administered because there was nobody left to deal with it.
To Bob Green's surprise, another travel agent moved into his shop.
I learned that the business seemed to be up and running again and had been taken over by a company called Wardle Travel.
The company had strong links with ABTA.
The chairman of the company was a man called Doug Wardle, who had been a senior ABTA committee member and, I believe, an ABTA board member.
Wardle Travel approached Mossley Travel company customers.
They told us that Mossley Travel had gone into receivership and that they were going to take over the booking, and I told them that I wasn't comfortable with that and I needed to know more about what had happened, and decided that we weren't going to do any business with them.
We wrote to Doug Wardle, but he didn't reply. ABTA told us in a statement it couldn't interfere. Bob Green was surprised that such a senior ABTA member would be so hard-nosed. Thomas Kynaston did pay some creditors, but when ABTA realised that not all would be paid, they stepped in and paid the rest. In 2004, Bob Green started getting anonymous phone calls.
There's lots of obscenity in it, which I won't repeat, but a very serious threat against me.
South Wales Police say that in May this year, Kevin Kynaston admitted making threatening phone calls and agreed to be bound over for 6 months to keep the peace. Bob Green also complained about Kevin Kynaston to the Association of Certified Chartered Accountants.
I decided to make a formal complaint to the ACCA, Kevin Kynaston's professional association, and this was started at that time.
Well, the complaints were all about his practice of auditing and signing audited accounts.
David Miller also met the accountant in court. Kevin Kynaston sued him for an unpaid bill. David Miller issued a counterclaim. Both cases were dropped, but Kevin Kynaston says the debt still stands.
We employ 20 staff here, and out of those, 3/4 had the tax codings wrong and had been paying more tax than they should have been, and this had happened over a period of 2 years.
Kevin Kynaston tried to sue another customer last week, but the case was not accepted. Stephen Utting successfully countersued for expenses incurred due to his accountant.
I'm satisfied that obviously justice has been seen, that I was in the right and he was in the wrong.
The judge awarded him £100 to cover fines for late filing of accounts.
For not providing the documentation that he should have provided to get my documents into the Inland Revenue on time. So it was a good result, really.
Bob Green's complaint to the ACCA resulted in Kevin Kynaston being excluded and fined in March 2005. It was revealed that the accountant shouldn't have been auditing accounts, we believe, from 1999. An appeal was rejected, although the fine was reduced.
He had signed and produced audited accounts when he was ineligible to do so, that he did not hold a valid practicing certificate for ACCA, and that he still held himself out to be an auditor, contrary to our practice.
Bob Green wishes he'd known Kevin Kynaston was already banned.
Had I been made aware of Kevin Kynaston's earlier misdemeanours, there's no way I would have retained him as my accountant, even going back to 1999. I would have sacked him.
Despite being excluded, Kevin Kynaston is still trading as an accountant from his base in the Canton area of Cardiff.
As the law stands at the moment, he can still practice as an accountant, which I know has caused great consternation to the ACCA.
The ACCA wants the law changed to stop men like Kevin Kynaston.
There are many, I wouldn't say hundreds, but there are many, many accountants in Wales, professing to be accountants, who are not subject to any professional body or any form of regulation whatsoever. And we don't believe that that situation should be allowed to continue. It's misleading as far as the public is concerned, and it can lead to the kind of problems that we encountered with Mr. Kynaston.
But Bob Green admits that he should have made it his business to understand more of the business side of his travel agency, and the forensic accountant has strong views.
There's been a conflict of interest, and he hasn't protected Bob Green's interests like you would expect from a professional accountant.
Thomas Kynaston declined to be interviewed. 3 weeks ago, we also asked Kevin Kynaston. On Friday, he told us he was prepared to be interviewed, but we were unable to agree to the condition he wished to impose. We'll be back after the break.